Chapter 29. Carlene turned out to be a big woman in a little woman's body. She had big hair, big teeth, big long fingernails, and big fuzzy slippers, but the rest of her was hollow and shrunken and bony. She looked like a witch dressed up for Halloween as a movie star. When Lester pulled the big pink Bible bus into the Tuttle Terrace trailer park, Carlene was sitting outside in a lawn chair. She was reading the Sunday paper and wearing nothing much more than a shinny satin robe and bright pink lipstick that bled into the wrinkles radiating from her lips, making them look ragged and jagged. Her feet were out of her slippers, and I could see that her long, thick toenails were painted to match her lipstick. When she saw the bus coming up her street, Carlene folded the paper and crossed her arms, not bothering to get up. I could see her squinting through the glare on the cracked windows at the rest of us, obviously surprised to find Lester carrying passengers. "It's probably best if you all stay here," said Lester, as he stood to descend from the bus. But before he could, Samson appeared at my side, squirming and wiggling and whispering into my ear. I grimaced at Fish as he looked our way, then called out to Lester as he opened the door of the bus. "My brother's got to go to the bathroom, Mr. Swan, sir," I said. Fish smacked the palm of his hand to his forehead. Bobby snorted, and Will chuckled. Lester looked bewildered and anxious as he watched Samson silently dance in place in the aisle of the bus. "You've got to take him, Lester," said Lil, like they were already an old married couple. Lester looked even more afflicted. "I'll take him," said Bobby, surprising everyone and standing up to take Samson's hand. "Someone's got to put the kid out of his misery." Samson took Bobby's hand without hesitation, and the two of them brushed past Lester to the exit of the bus. Not sure what was going to happen next, Fish and Will and I moved over to carefully slide open the windows, facing Carlene's trailer, so that we could have a better view of the action outside. Bobby led Samson down the steps and stopped in front of Carlene's lawn chair. "May we please use your bathroom, ma'am?" Bobby asked plainly. "Lester!" Carlene shouted, ignoring Bobby as she stood up out of the lawn chair, dropping her newspapers and shoving her feet into her fuzzy slippers. "Lester, you stupid, senseless man! Get your scrawny butt down here right now and tell me what's going on. Who are all these kids?" Samson clogged in place, tugging on Bobby's arm. "Ma'am, please?" Bobby repeated. Carlene waved Bobby off like a fly, rounding on Lester as he stepped down off the bus. Bobby took the woman's wave as permission, whether it was meant that way or not, and hurried Samson up into the trailer to find the bathroom. It gave me the heebie-jeebies to watch Samson and Bobby disappear into the house, as though they were Hansel and Gretel, stepping unknowingly into an enormous oven. Fish and Will must have felt the same way too. We all looked at each other, and then barreled out of the bus, right past Carlene and Lester, following Bobby and Samson up into the trailer, and leaving Lil alone to wait things out. The inside of Carlene's trailer was smoky and dim, as the early afternoon sunlight tried to force its way through the thick, gauzy curtains that covered all the windows. The pungent odor of mothballs and scented candles flooded my nose and throat, making me cough. Carlene's furniture was garnished and awful, and every shelf... Sorry, my throat's dry. Every shelf or corner held chocks or gewgaws. Yes, I said that perfectly. And other tacky trinkets. Sorry. You guys need to tell me what this means because I have no idea. Probably just basically trinkets, yeah. Once Samson had finished taking care of his business, Bobby and I took turns doing the same. I stepped out of the bathroom just in time to catch Samson slipping beneath a long tablecloth that draped nearly to the floor, cascading over a small table just in front of the paneled bar that separated the living room from the kitchen. As he shimmied under the table, trying to disappear into this new hiding spot in his usual stealthy way, I grabbed my brother by the ankle and pulled him out from under the table backward. "Not now, Samson," I said. "Not here. Stay where we can see you, okay?" Samson looked back at me, his face as stony and expressionless as always, though I couldn't help but notice how his thin shoulders seemed to droop ever so slightly. I was about to assure him that we'd be leaving soon. that it wouldn't be long until we were with Mama and Rocket down in Selena, that soon we'd be seeing Papa. But at that moment, Carlene burst into the trailer with Lester following at her heels. Carlene was shouting and covering her ears. Lester was trying to hand her a wad of money, clipped with a paperclip. But Carlene wouldn't even look at him, ranting about Lester's lack of intelligence and general witlessness. She ushered Fish away from a shelf filled with animal figurines, all made from jumbles of dry macaroni, and pulled a leaking, half-empty sunny Miami snow globe from out of Will Jr.'s hands. "I'm not taking that money, Lester," Carlene hollered, glaring suspiciously at Bobby, who was simply standing by the sofa. "I'm not taking it because it's not nearly enough. You come back here when you have twice that much." Carlene stopped talking just long enough to look around the room at each of us. Her face twisted and contorted, like she was trying to remember something that maybe we reminded her of. "Fine, Carlene," said Lester, "but don't take the money. But know that I won't be coming back. Whether you take the money or not. I'm moving on." "How dare you speak to me that way?" Carlene shouted, looking away from us kids and grabbing the money out of his hand greedily. The woman's temper flared hotter, and she pitched the leaking snow globe straight at Lester's head. Lester ducked, then danced, as Carlene began throwing other things at him as well. Figurines and collector's plates sailed across the room, crashing against a wall or a lamp or a table, as Lester jumped out of the way. Both the flesh and blood Carlene and the Carlene inside Lester's head were screeching and bellowing so loudly that the voice of Rhonda could barely get a word in edgewise. "I thought I raised you better than this, you idiot boy," Rhonda scolded him. "Brawling with a woman." "You are such a washout, Lester. Such a complete dud," Carlene bellowed as macaroni poodles flew through the air. "Lester's a moron. Lester's a—" "Shut up!" At long last, it was Lester's turn to cover his ears and shout. His turn to tell all the voices to be quiet. "That's enough!" Lester roared, standing tall in his overalls inside Carlene's trailer. "I've had enough of you, Carlene. I don't care if you get me fired. I'll find some way to keep my bus. I don't care about your cousin Larry, and I don't care about you." A shocked silence stopped up the room. For a moment, no one moved. No one breathed. No one spoke, or even thought. "Well, I'll never," Rhonda started, then quickly faded out. "Nitwit." Carlene's voice inside Lester's head got in one final jab before it too sizzled out like a dying flame. As the living, breathing Carlene stopped throwing things and stared at Lester, speechless for the first time, she remembered that she had an audience, as Bobby, Fish, Will, and I all shifted in our places. I had a bad feeling in the pit of my stomach, and the little hairs on the back of my neck began to prickle. Carlene looked from one of us to the next, several times, and I could see her slowly dawning recognition. It was time to go. "Bless my stars. Lester, these are the kids on the TV," Carlene said low and slow, like the first warning hiss of a poisonous snake. Lester looked from Carlene to the rest of us, obviously confused. "The TV?" he repeated. "The alert on the TV," Carlene continued, stepping away sideways while keeping her eyes on us. "The missing kids. Land's sake, Lester, did you help these kids run away?" "What?" Lester stammered. No, yes, not on purpose. Carlene, just let me explain." But Carlene was already reaching for the telephone. "You can explain yourself to the police, you defective dolt." She punched the buttons on the phone with one long, sharp fingernail. "The police? Not the police, Lester!" I shouted, running out from my corner of the room. I grabbed Lester's arms and tried to pull him to the door. "We have to get to Selena, Lester. Everything will be fine when we get to Selena, but we have to go now." Bobby, Fish, and Will all joined me in pulling Lester out of the trailer and back into the bus. "We've got to go, Lester," we shouted as we prodded him into the driver's seat, and Fish pulled a lever to close the door behind us. Lester moved slowly, like he was in a trance, starting up the bus and putting it in gear. without hardly paying attention. His brain was still trying to catch up, trying to figure out what he was doing, if he was doing the right thing. "What's happening?" Lil wanted to know, having stayed on the bus to give Lester some room to fight his own battles, but we spared no time for her on explanations. "Just drive!" shouted Bobby as Carlene stepped out of the trailer with her cordless phone to her ear, waving and pointing as though the operator on the other end of the line could see us driving away. We were back on the highway, Lester sweating buckets and Lil's face drawn tight, bewildered and worried. Sitting on the edge of our seats, we kept watch out the windows. For the first glimpse of flashing lights, the first sound of sirens on our tail, I remembered again that this was all my fault, that we wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for me and a savvy that had come and dropped me into hot water fast. That hot water turned cold as ice as I stopped thinking about how sad and sorry my life had become and realized something even more terrible, with the same sudden pain as a brain freeze. I stood up and looked around, and my heart skipped a beat. "Where's Samson?"